I stayed up all night again and I'm really, really agitated. Had to preface this video with that. I've been reading. No, I didn't seek them out. It's the same old shit. I get stuff in my Hotmail inbox from one of my subscribers. One of my subscribers is like Be Good 4000 or something. And it's a guy and all he does is videos on the narcissistic personality. Only he talks about like the narcissist who just is like a psychopath or something, has no empathy, no compassion, no anything, you know. And you can have narcissistic traits and certainly not be anything like he describes, you know. And one person pointed that out. They're like, you know, there's a difference. There's malignant narcissist, and then there's, you know, the bottom line is, people, that I told you I went and saw that seminar on Sunset in Hollywood. It was held at the Psychiatry of Death. It was by a whistleblower scientist, somebody who had been one of the drug designers. He created the psych meds, and he's a whistleblower, and he told us straight out, up front, blunt, the goal of these companies, these big pharma, is eventually, what they want, their secret goal is for every man, woman, and child on the entire fucking planet to be on some sort of psych meds, okay? Everything is an illness, right? I admittedly have loads of problems. I have a personality disorder, or a combination of such, okay? But, I mean, I've never pretended otherwise. I certainly have never touted myself as being even remotely normal, okay? But the thing is, and I'm going back to past me, not present me, if I'm not asking for your help, and I'm making my own way in life, even if it's not, in other words, I'm supporting myself, I'm not asking for your help, I'm not asking for your money, and I'm making my own way in life, supporting myself, even if it's not in a manner you deem appropriate, leave me the fuck alone. Just leave me alone. You know? Just leave me the fuck alone. By the way, it wasn't only Auntie who got to finally have proof, you know. Daughters of Dead Aunt, too. Proof of what they knew all along about Laura, you know. That I was sick as they believed all along, you know. Remember what I told him a middle cousin said to me about you know, I've known people, I knew kids whose parents made them fuck dogs and they don't behave like you know. She was, justifiably, you have to look at it from my perspective too, it's like, they're the good ones, or they're the, you know, they're the ones who didn't fuck up at all, and they're married with kids, you know what I mean? So when I did Alicia's World, it was like, I was like being that, but it's coming from a place of, you know, it's like, see, I'm not just this whatever, you know? Not just, it's so hard to explain. I don't think anyone could understand unless they just could either step into my brain or experience things entirely similar. And it has to be completely similar, including the, you know, I had this talent that I couldn't do anything, with, and I'm just seen as my mother, the daughter of the schizophrenic woman, you know what I mean? You have to take all of that into consideration. The desire for fame or to be special that was innate, it was in me, and but since I didn't go the marriage kid route and all that, my cousins either just, they can either just not relate to me at all, or, outright just, not approve. So, depending upon which cousin you're talking about which cousin you're talking. But still, I mean, I meant well in a way. I mean, you have to understand, whenever I saw them, I always hugged them, always asked how they were doing, or and but I'm sure when I did Alicia's World, I just came across as like, why are you trying to be my friend or reach out to me or whatnot? You're just trying to brag, and maybe I was, But again, we all have our own perspectives on things, and it was like the outsider. It wasn't, it was like, well, they loved me, or they had to, you know what I mean? It was like, and the middle one before, when I used to, she acted like she was being forced to hang out with me. I guess I wanted to, I wanted to feel like my cousins really loved me, that they weren't just, being forced to hang out with me, but a lot of times I felt exactly like that, like they were just I still think, even if, she felt like I was being too narcissistic or whatnot, and talking about Alicia's World that I was excited about, I think it was still inappropriate to say that to me, especially considering she knows all the hell I went through. You know what I mean? That I'm not going to be like this well-adjusted, whatever. Another thing that one said to me, the middle one before, don't envy my normalcy, just be normal. And then when I later told her that, I was actually helping some people with my Alicia's World, they didn't approve of the stripping part, but I had the news part where I wrote too, and some people would write to me, that they could relate or whatever that I was saying. And then my cousin changed her tune, and then it's like she was crying and saying she was sorry, and she's like, I don't know. She's like, I'm sorry, I was, but in the end, that only lasts so long, and then, all this bullshit with all the bullshit that I would never have any real perspective had I not had this YouTube channel where I could actually find people who were gonna, not idiots either, people who actually could see where I was coming from and things. You guys know, they all know, the whole family knows what happened with my mom, Me and cousin. Some of you guys, it made me feel vindicated just because you didn't just call me a loon. But my cousin was the first person in my family, to make me feel vindicated. And I'm not even talking about the triangle. I'm even just talking about her recognition, that you went through so much as a kid and then you never even got to heal because of the way the family treated you, Laura, And then look what happens with her. That relationship completely falls by the wayside, I'm admittedly a basket case at this point with everything. Admittedly so. So I go and read some of these comments, and a lot of people just have no compassion, no empathy, particularly when it comes to personality disorders, because people think you're doing it on purpose, or what, you know what I mean? People can kind of say, okay, well, someone like my mom's schizophrenic, she's schizophrenic, that's not her fault, she's not doing it on purpose. But when you have a personality disorder, when I'm reading some of these comments, and they're very harsh, a lot of them. One person was calling all people with borderline personality disorder psychopaths. And that's just extremely harsh. But in any case, that was one of the three possible that I was, I thought a long time ago that I might have that. And I'd be like, you don't have that, Yeah, but actually I probably do. At least, you can have a combination of things. Like I said, they want to everybody's sick. Everybody's mentally ill. They want every single person on the planet on some sort of psych med. Even if you have a certain illness, that doesn't mean you necessarily have every single teeny aspect of it. And it doesn't mean you can't rise above it and be something more than just defined by that, Because personality disorders are very complex, and that's why, a lot of people can't stand people with personality disorders, because it's just different. Just so you know, as for Joe, he wasn't when I first met him. That was over 20 years ago, around 20 years ago. He is currently the most well-adjusted, he does meditation, he exercises, he's got a really good, high-paying job, he shows up for his work, he doesn't drink or smoke anything any longer, etc., etc., etc. He's really got his act together, shit together. But he does not remain my friend, you know, out of pity or anything like that, because I clearly, and he'd be the first to tell you it, I don't have my act together, not even remotely. But he doesn't remain my friend out of pity. He remains my friend because despite all my admitted problems, I am able, he can have, you know, intelligent discussions with me. I don't, you know, his family is like, they're all religious, and they're all just, like he says, I go to a family thing, and the guys that just want to talk about football or this, that, whatever, I can't talk to them about anything deep, and Joe can talk to me about anything. Again, I have admittedly 1,000,001 problems, but I'm intelligent, and I'm aware of the world, and I don't just, you know, tell Joe, oh, everything you're thinking comes from Satan, you know. Believe me, Joe would not remain my friend if I did shit like that. He's my friend all these years because, you know, I don't, you know, put him down or just think that everything, you know, so. A lot of times you simply cannot be friends with your family, you know. When you're a kid, it's different. I told you, the one that was my age, I worshipped the ground she walked on. When I say I worshipped the ground she walked on, I worshipped the ground she walked on. I mean, I did. I just wanted her love. I just wanted to feel like she loved me. I just, you know. But we got older, and that was it, you know. And that's sad. Of course it's sad. Everything's sad. All this shit that has happened to my mom all these years is sad. You know, it's all sad. Everything's sad. All the things I was watching, that bot movie that's happening to, you know. It starts off talking about, you know, something's wrong. Our children are getting sicker and sicker as each year goes by, you know. And what's changed, as the movie points out, what's changed is, you know, the obscene amount of vaccines given nowadays, and, you know, compared to when I was growing up, when I was a child, and the GMOs that were introduced in 1996. That's all that's changed in our world, so, you know. All heartbreaking. This one woman was awesome in comments. The comments upset me. I didn't even read that many of them. But she was awesome. She's like, not people who don't have borderline personality, not people who don't have borderline personality disorder, accuse borderline personality disorder people afflicted with that disease as having zero empathy. It's not that we have zero empathy, it's situational. You know what I mean? It's when you're with somebody who you feel can hurt you, can abandon you, can hurt you, whatnot. Then you're viewed as having no empathy, but it's not that you have no empathy about the entire world, you know. I know I have loads of compassion and empathy and whatnot. Even if I am narcissistic, as, you know, as Auntie accused me of being many years ago. The funny thing about that, and that's another hypothetical for you guys, you know, how about this? You know, if somebody's, you know, putting you down and just wants you to be in your place and wants you to only be what they deem you worthy of being, etc., etc., okay? And then you toot your own horn a little bit. Like, if they want you to just lie there and take it, then you're narcissistic. If you defend yourself by putting out your good qualities or bragging about something, or, you know what I mean? It's like, no, they just want you to remain in your place. They want to put you down, you know. Just like when I was having the Chad Kroger delusion and people were putting me down left and right, and then if I defended myself by putting out my good qualities, they called me narcissistic. Because they want you to just lie back and take it, and that's really not rational. This one guy in another video, he's like a life coach or something. He's actually, I think he's hot. I can't find the video now. I was going to ask Selena if she thought he was hot. But in any case, he's some kind of life coach or something. He was talking about borderline personality disorder, because people were trying to figure out the difference between that and narcissistic personality disorder. And, but anyway, he talked about something called complex PTSD, and he was acknowledging, you know, that a lot of people suffer through all different traumas. As he says, it's not acknowledged, but he believes in it anyway. It's not acknowledged in the DSM-V or whatever that is, you know, the giant book of mental illnesses. Let's refer to it as that. But he believes there's a thing called complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and that has to do with when you go through like repeated traumas as a child, but there's no specific thing you can point to. So you're not going through the trauma anymore, but the stress remains. This is like, at one age you experienced one type of trauma, and then another age another type, and another type, another type. I fall into that category, definitely. You know, it went from one to another to another. You know, he said that's different than like regular like post-traumatic stress disorder. Like, say you lose your arm or something, and you know, obviously you went through the trauma and the stress, but you can know where it came from. I lost my arm because somebody shot my arm off. Whereas as a child, when you go through so much trauma repeatedly, just chaos, you can't pinpoint any one thing. You know, remember with me, it wasn't just one thing. It was one thing after another. You know, Irv was the abusive alcoholic, and then he cheated on my mom, and my mom broke down and had the illness, and then I could even have, you know, it could be subconscious, even if I can't consciously remember, you know, how my dad was when I was just a baby, and how he left me alone in the apartment before when my mom was out looking for work. My dad left me alone to scream and cry. I mean, just because I don't consciously remember, that doesn't mean it's not somewhere in my memory, you know, etc., etc., etc. So, you know, but this life coach guy believes that anyway, and he acknowledges that not all borderlines, apparently, I don't know, not all the borderlines suffer, you know, a traumatic childhood, but the majority do. And I, of course, definitely fall in that category. Remember that guy, the psychologist who saw me, you know, who was going to be the final thing. He didn't have the final say. He was, you know, like he assured me, he's like, I don't have the final say, I just have, but you know, he had enough say, and he's the one who examined me on behalf of them, and he didn't have time to issue a test. According to personalities, according to him, everything she says is it's not her fault. Well, you know what? a lot of things are not my fault, you fucking prick. Is it my fault that Donald was an abusive asshole and that he left me dead at the bottom of that hill and that, or possibly dead? Is it my fault the friggin' taxi that came and picked me up at the shelter, he went away that he knew that there might be some kind of extraction, but he thought it was over and it wasn't, and he didn't get me to the appointment in time, even though they know how imperative it is that I get there on time? How is it my fault if I'm trapped in a taxi? I mean, and he had the nerve, and I never would have saw that. The only reason I saw it, I had to pay for it, because cousin wanted me to find out my diagnosis so we could determine how bad, she just had, I didn't like reading it. He was off on a lot, even to the point where he really didn't, probably because when I talk, I went to a therapist, and I do realize this because my female therapist pointed it out to me, but my thoughts race and I jump from one thing to another, and I'm sure the guy had trouble keeping track of what I was saying. When I was talking about my abusive alcoholic stepfather, Irv, he wrote in his thing that I was talking about my father. You know what I mean? He was off on a lot, but you're not going to learn about somebody in 50 minutes anyway. And there are a lot of things that, just because people say, like me say, well, it's not my fault, there are a lot of things that aren't my fault, And that can apply to a lot of people who say things aren't their fault. He made me out to be just whatever. And you could say, okay, well, that's a good thing because that he gave you, that probably was the reason you got your Social Security. I know. But still, it's very insulting. Especially the taxi thing. If I'm picked up in a taxi, and I made it clear that's what they do to make sure you get there on time. My shelter caseworker said, Laura, whatever you do not miss this appointment. You cannot miss this appointment. It hinges whether if you miss that appointment, that's it. You won't. This really hinges on this appointment whether or not And I didn't miss it, of course. And I, come hell or high water, I had to be there even if I was sick. And I wasn't sick, but you know what I mean. Taxi picks you up in plenty of time. They arrange for plenty of time. And I was 10 minutes late and it wasn't my fault, okay? And for him to even mention that in there, whatever he called me, the person, whatever I'm called, who he's seeing, applicant, was 10 minutes late, and oh my God, fuck you. Fuck you. What was 10 minutes late? I took a taxi there. It was all arranged by higher ups. In the shelter and whatnot, the taxi, and they pay for it, you know what I mean? Or Social Security, whoever paid for it, because I'm in a shelter, whoever paid for it, doesn't matter. The fact is, it was a friggin' taxi who had plenty of time. They leave extra time. He went away I was like, for him. But we could have been late because there was an accident. We could have been late for any reason. How can you write that in my thing? That's so insulting. It upsets me. A lot of what I read upsets me. I mean, even though I know that him misunderstanding or just making me out to be, it's horrible. Because like I said, I admittedly have a lot of problems, and he might be right on some stuff, but some stuff he was completely off and didn't even have his facts straight. As in, I know damn well I didn't say what you wrote here because it's not true, and I only tell the truth, you know what I mean? He was mistaken. Maybe he was, off on a daydream, listening to me ramble on and on and on. You just, I don't know. But yeah, I'm so completely different from the daughters of my now deceased aunt, just like their mom was so completely different from my mom, And, it's like, it's virtually impossible to sustain a real real friendship with your family members when you're so radically different from them. And that's how Joe is with his family. He was a musician, he was, and they just can't relate to it, and, he doesn't really even see his family anymore. So, and both his parents are gone, so he doesn't bother, so, Joe, of course, he doesn't watch my videos or anything like that, to him, this is all, like, superficial stuff, and I wouldn't expect him to, I wouldn't. I wouldn't expect him to have anything to do with my YouTube channel or whatnot. Joe and I have a different type of friendship, and, as long as he's not going to put me down about it either. It's just, it's almost like I don't do it, you know what I mean? And that's fine. That's fine. I don't mind it. Like I said, I'm very grateful that he's still a part of my life, and, I'm sure he wouldn't approve even some of my videos. He certainly doesn't like me drinking and whatnot. So I keep that side, pretty much separate. Like, I don't really share that side with him because he's not interested, Anyway, stayed up all night. I got all thrown off kilter with the electricity going on for hours. Someone might have hit a pole or something, who knows, Something happened, I don't know. Anything can happen. I wasn't tired, and I got myself all agitated reading those comments. I didn't read that many of them, but I did read them, and I read, the negative ones, and not all. I'm sure there's probably thousands of comments. I just only read a few, more than a few, but you know what I mean. But when I'm talking about, the old me, the one in my 20s, the one before I ran off to LA and whatnot, if I'm making my own way in life and not asking anybody for anything, then leave me the fuck alone. I'm not asking you for your help. Leave me alone. uncle's super, super religious. I told you guys about that. I told you about that. When my aunt died and my uncle was trying to... That is just not appropriate. I'm at the thing, the whatever you call it, whatever it is after you go to the funeral. I haven't seen you in a long, many, many years, and you're gonna... It's just not appropriate. You know? Don't try to shove Jesus down my throat when I'm grieving for my dead aunt. I mean... This is how I've felt a lot of times when it, you know, to just shut up and take your meds and be a good little mentally ill girl. Don't think that you can be anything other than that. And then when you're not, when you have the nerve to think that you are not defined by your personality disorder or disorders, you can, you know, rise above it in certain areas and be more than that. And they don't like it because you're not staying in your place. See, I never actually did anything to, just so you know. I never actually did anything to, you know. Anyone who's followed me out here for a long time knows that whole story. What happened with my you know, when she wasn't gone, and her daughters and whatnot. You know exactly why you didn't go to bed, Laura. You got agitated and went over the stupid electricity going on because you couldn't sleep, and then you tried to sleep anyway, and then you woke up and it came back on. And then you're doing this, that, and what have you. And you get caught up in watching videos and seeing what other people had to say about borderline personality disorder, and then before you know it, sun's coming up and you haven't gone to bed. Fine, I'll just sleep off and on all day. I say off and on because, you know, things are going to wake me up. It's fine. I've told you guys before, so often it's other people's comments that just compel me. I just want to read, be it under YouTube videos or under things that pop up on MSN that fascinate me, you know what I mean? The video you can watch in a short amount of time, or the article you can read in a short amount of time. But if you're trying to read 1,000 comments, that's going to take hours of your time, you know? I have to kind of set limits for myself, because I don't even know why I bother saying this to you guys anymore, because it's such a joke, you know. Oh, people wrote comments too that borderline people have borderline personality disorder. Just lie. I don't lie. I definitely have characteristics of borderline personality disorder. I've read, I've studied it, I know. And I know how hard people with borderline can be, you know, to deal with, how other people have trouble dealing with borderlines. But so-called normal people have trouble, you know, dealing with, I'm sure, people who have all different personality disorders, you know what I mean? So-called normal people have trouble dealing with anybody with a mental illness a lot of the times. That middle cousin, the one who later, you know, said this, that, and whatever to me. Sort of thought because it was my age, but she said, you know, different. She was all, just everything focused around God and Jesus and how it's the only way, Laura, you know. So the Christian woman now thinks I haven't heard that before. I've heard it from my own goddamn cousin who used to worship the ground she walked on when we were both kids, you know. She was my insert name and say it affectionately. She was my Melissa, or she was my Karen, she was my, you know. oozing normalcy from every pore of her body. Yeah, you know how that goes. And the middle one later. Don't envy my normalcy, just be normal. Oh, like it's that easy. If it were that easy, we'd all be cured of our, of our mental illnesses. I don't even pretend for a second that I can be in a normal, romantic relationship or whatnot. I told you, I'm hoping to, get to experience good sex for the first time ever in my life, and that's about the end of it, I have no delusions about, I wouldn't even know where to begin to be in like a boyfriend-girlfriend type thing. I wouldn't even know, I wouldn't be able to do it. I would not be able to do it. I wouldn't even know how to proceed, how to be in that kind of relationship. Wouldn't be able to do it. And that's sad, everything's sad. We come back to the same old bullshit. Everything is sad. Everything's sad. I didn't go to sleep because I'm just agitated. I agitated myself. I wish I had earplugs. What I need is earplugs. Knock me out. One guy was saying in the comment that 9 Inch Nails Hurt, that song Hurt, is about people with borderline. But I don't know about that. He's like, people always say that's about drugs, it's not about people with borderline. I don't know about that because it says the needle tears a hole. That old familiar sting, want to kill it all away, but I remember everything, You can have it all, my empire of dirt. I will let you down, I will make you hurt. I don't know. Could be something with borderline, if you really listen to the lyrics, because one of the things about borderlines is they're excessively impulsive in one or more areas, like drugs and alcohol, sexual promiscuity, etc., etc. I know that 9 Inch Nails song. I thought it was about someone addicted to some kind of heroin or something, the needle tears a hole, that old familiar sting, who knows? Just because somebody posts a comment doesn't mean they 100% know about what they're talking, that they know what they're talking about. Oh, I know, I got off on a tangent because I'm tired, and I was going to say, I was talking about, how there's still, a stigma in people who, don't have mental illness or whatnot, at least nothing too severe or diagnosed, etc. Something you can't really pinpoint, like the so-called normal people a lot of times don't have compassion or empathy, for people who are mentally ill. Middle daughter, dead aunt. When you juxtapose this with how absolutely just like this I was with my mom, she apparently as a teenager, she had a mother with schizophrenia or something, I guess. My cousin's, friend, had a mom that when they were teenagers or whatnot, and something like she didn't even want anything to do with her mom, she kind of shunned her mom and, probably ashamed or whatnot. I remember that story as I heard it. I heard it from Dead Aunt, saying, so-and-so say Tabitha. Yeah, Tabitha's mother has all kinds of problems, just like your mom would have, but Tabitha just doesn't want anything to do with her mom, and, I have yet again had my say, but I'm only just barely scratching the surface, you know what I mean? First, my whole family, well, one's aware of such things, got their proof of what they knew all along, I went up on Social Security disability, whatnot, it's finally official, and that I'm cuckoo, and then all this shit happens over these last several months, with my mom, and the whole kit and caboodle of that, and, it's just... so sucks. All sucks. And like my good friend, online friend, it all sucks. All sucks. Nothing but a fucked up truck of ducks. It all sucks. It all sucks. Nothing but a fucked up truck of ducks. Fucked up truck of ducks. It all fucking sucks.